Welcome back everyone, this is going to be my new video for all the crazy huge changes at DC movies and TV shows that were just announced this past week. The new CEO of the company after their big merger made these announcements about how they're basically going to change everything that's happening at DC, so I'll explain what's going on. They're also appointing a new Kevin Feige type of figure at DC. Everybody keeps saying that DC is getting its own version of a Kevin Feige.
You're late, you dickheads.
It's a huge deal, it's all good news, so it's no reason to worry or anything like that. I'll explain what's going on. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. Most of you saw this past week that Warner Brothers finished their big merger with Discovery. It was this huge merger between a couple mega companies. DC is owned by Warner Brothers, so when we talk about DC movies, TV shows, the comics, all that stuff is owned by Warner Brothers. Even though this video is all about what's happening with the Justice League, the Flash, Black Adam, Superman, Batman, all the rest of their characters, this is all still Warner Brothers specific stuff. DC is inside Warner Brothers. So all the people who used to work at Warner Brothers before they just got fired basically called a lot of the shots about the movies, the TV shows that they made at DC. Quick history, what had happened in the past couple years is that a big tech company, AT&T, basically bought Warner Brothers out, bought an entire studio to get all the content. They made a big streaming service called HBO Max. It was really confusing. They took on way too much debt, like many billions of dollars to buy this giant studio worth of content, not just buying DC, because Warner Brothers owns many different film brands. AT&T got cold feet and said, we took on way too much debt, this is hurting our tech business, so they sold off the studio and they merged with Discovery Channel networks, so Warner Brothers is basically back to where they used to be, just being a regular film and TV studio. All the people that worked there seemed like they were way more happy with the way that they're running things at this new company than they were under AT&T, so it sounds like a relatively good thing. Because all these companies got bought and sold so many times, a bunch of the people that used to be in charge at Warner Brothers, especially the people that everyone really hated online, you saw people yelling about, most of them got fired. And now the CEO of this brand new entire company called Warner Brothers Discovery, the person who tells everyone what to do, was recently talking to Variety about what their long-term plans are for DC. He said everything about the way they're doing business is changing in a big way, all the changes make a ton of sense, and you'll be wondering why they didn't do this a billion years ago. Like, we've been yelling about this the whole time. How come they didn't do this a long time ago? What he said is that they're turning DC into its own vertical at this new mega company, so DC is going to have a much bigger say in the films, the movies, in the comics than they did before. Remember, previously what happened is that Warner Brothers typically picked and chose what kind of TV shows they would make, not DC. And what they were going to do as part of this is make someone the new Kevin Feige of DC. So a lot of you understand a little bit about what Kevin Feige does at Marvel. Everybody thinks of Marvel, they think of Kevin Feige.
The things that Kevin has done with Marvel was so brilliant. And
a couple years ago, what Disney did with Marvel is that they basically took all the different things that Marvel does, all the TV shows, all the movies, all the comics, all the toys, everything, and they just put Kevin Feige in charge of everything. Previously, different groups in the company were in charge of different types of business. So previously, Kevin Feige just ran Marvel Studios, they just made the movies. The people that made the Marvel television shows, like the Marvel Netflix shows, that was a completely different group of people. The people in charge of the toys were different. The people in charge of the Marvel comics were a completely different group of people. Disney simplified all that and just made Kevin Feige creatively in charge of everything. That was right before they started doing all the Marvel Disney Plus shows and started rolling out Disney Plus. It all kind of makes sense now. Make somebody in charge of everything so that it's way more consistent across all the movies and TV shows. He didn't really change much about what they're doing with the comic books, and I think that's going to be the same for DC. Like, the person who is in charge of DC won't mess a ton with what's happening with the comics. This is mostly a video about the movies and the TV shows. What changed at Marvel with all the TV shows they were doing is that they started doing the Marvel Studios Disney Plus shows. Marvel Studios branding, the Marvel Studios logo started playing in front of everything, and you started to see all the movie actors that Kevin Feige had been working with for so many years showing up in the TV shows, and the brand new characters, like, for instance, the Moon Knight show that I'm doing videos for. They introduced those brand new characters, brand new mythology. That's all intended to cross over with the future movies, so there's way more synergy between the movies and the TV shows. DC is slowly starting to do that. Like, they announced all these Batman spin-off TV shows from Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves' Batman movie.
Think they deserved it.
They have an HBO Penguin show with Colin Farrell's version of the Penguin that's going to explain his backstory and deal more with what's happening to him in the future. There's that Arkham Asylum TV show that might feature a version of the Riddler and the Joker that we saw during the Batman movie. There's the Green Lantern Corps HBO show that they're working on right now that's supposed to come out next year. Just imagine DC doing way more of that kind of stuff. What this brand new CEO of the mega company said is that whoever becomes the new Kevin Feige of DC is supposed to be making way more big budget HBO shows for characters and way more movies, also way more of them about the non-holy trinity of characters. So like we always make jokes about how thirsty Warner Brothers is for Batman projects. Like we have at least 3 different giant live action versions of Batman. There are way more versions of Batman that are coming, but there are 3 really big ones coming to the screen in the next couple of years between Robert Pattinson's Batman, Ben Affleck's Batman, and then Michael Keaton's Batman. When the CEO said that they have lots of plans for way more smaller movies with lots of spin-off characters, he specifically called out the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie of an example of a movie that didn't cost quite as much as your traditional big movies and featured characters that you wouldn't necessarily expect would normally get their own movies. The difference with the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie is that that was more of like a DC Black Label movie. This new announcement doesn't mean they're just doing a bunch more Black Label movies. It just means they're doing a bunch more movies that aren't necessarily going to be giant movies with the A-list characters. Like there are a ton of DC characters who aren't necessarily part of the Justice League who would make for amazing TV shows, even amazing movies that you don't have to spend $150 million on. And it's a lot easier for DC to jump around in the spectrum of how hardcore each of these movies are. Like they can do their smaller rated R movies, they can do big budget PG-13 movies like traditional superhero films. When people talk about animation, DC animation has been killing it for a long time. Batman the Animated Series is probably one of the best TV series of all time, not just animated series, any kind of TV series. Batman Mask of the Phantasm, also one of the best Batman movies of all time. It just happens to be animated. During this big discussion, the CEO said that they also have big plans to revitalize their Superman character. All you Superman stans will love this. He said that they had vastly underutilized Superman as a character the past several years. Like, he's one of our biggest characters, why aren't we doing anything with them right now? When the CEO says something like that, you know they have big plans for Superman in the future. A lot of you know asking, does this mean Henry Cavill would ever come back? Would they make Man of Steel 2? Would they actually have him cross over with Black Adam like they've been talking about, other Justice League characters? There's been a lot of talk about him crossing over with some of these other movies, even if he doesn't get his own solo film. Are they going to keep making the alternate universe Superman movies that they talked about the past couple of years, like the Val Zod HBO show with Michael B. Jordan? That's a TV show. Regardless, I think that Henry Cavill's chances of actually coming back just shot way up. And that's probably part of the reason why he's been so quiet about all this Superman stuff the past year or so. So what does this all mean, and who's going to be DC's new Kevin Feige? Lots of people have been throwing names around and asking if this means Zack Snyder is going to come back and do more movies and HBO shows inside his own Snyderverse. Like, we just got the Justice League Snyder cut last year. It was light years better than the theatrical cut. He had all these plans for sequel movies. I did a video about that, so I'll link it below in the description. He did have fully planned Justice League 2, Justice League 3, and then a bunch of other spin-offs as well. Now that DC sounds like it's ramping up on 1 billion more HBO shows and movies and firing a lot of the people who used to be in charge of DC, who Zack Snyder didn't necessarily get along with, it's definitely more possible that Zack Snyder gets asked to do some more DC projects. Like I said, all the DC shows that you heard about the past few years, like the Matt Reeves Batman spin-off shows with all those movie actors, the Green Lantern Corps show, all the other stuff that they've been developing, that stuff is all still happening. The movies that they've been in the middle of making are all still coming out. One of the only things that will probably change noticeably is that DC will get their new Kevin Feige person in charge of everything, and you'll see way more big budget shows that have connections to the movies. Way more of the movie actors showing up in the HBO shows. That was part of the thing with them bringing back Michael Keaton's Batman in the Flash movie initially, because they wanted to set up way more crossovers with a version of Batman. That's also part of the reason for them getting into all the multiverse of it all, is so that they can pick and choose which versions they use, and they can switch actors if they need to, like if people don't want to continue, or if they do have really big problems with the people they're working with right now. There are only a few people in Hollywood who are probably qualified for what DC needs. Like, whoever becomes their new Kevin Feige will have to be an excellent producer of movies and TV shows, a really good business person who knows how to run a massive company, and they'll have to have an understanding of who all these characters are in the comics that they originally come from. There are a lot of good producers out there, there are a lot of good business people out there, but there aren't a ton of people who can do all of those different things at the same time and happen to be comic book nerds. So everyone, let me know in the comments, who do you want to be DC's new Kevin Feige? I will say it's definitely not going to be Kevin Feige. He already said a long time ago he has no plans of leaving Marvel anytime soon. And what new movies and TV shows do you want DC to start making that they're not already making right now? Everyone can start their campaign for a Terry McGinnis and Michael Keaton Batman Beyond HBO show right here. But I got a couple new trailers and bonus videos that I'm working on right now. Those will post in the next few days. Make sure you enable alerts for my channel to be the first to watch those. And everyone click here for my Moon Knight Episode 4 trailer video, and click here for my full Moon Knight Episode 3 video. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.